I'm matching my drink today. Hello everyone, welcome back. We're going to be talking about all of the books that I read over the summer. May through July actually, because I will do an August wrap up at the end of this month. But yes, if you watch my recent update video, you'll know that I am pregnant again, and I was really sick during the first trimester, so I didn't do a lot of reading through June especially. I did read 6 books in July, which surprised me because I didn't think I had actually read that much, but I did. 2 of them were really short junior books, and at least 3 of them were on my Kindle, I think. Maybe 2? I'm not sure. But I wanted to do a recap of what I read because I did not end up doing a recap for the month of May either. So, because at the end of May is when I found out I was pregnant, and then I got sick almost right away. So, yes. I do have my Goodreads here because I'm going to need to keep track because I want to go in order of the books that I read, and then also to remember ratings. I'm just basically going to say what the books were, what my star rating was, and give any thoughts on them if I have any. So, let's just go ahead and get started. So yes, I only read 5 books in May. The first one that I read in May was Be Still My Soul by Joanne Bischoff. This is the first book of the Cadence of Grace series. And you good, Mitch? And we follow Lonnie, who is kind of forced into a marriage because of a situation that her father thought was compromising, and so he forced her to marry this guy. And this guy, Gabriel, I think is his name, Gideon. And he was not really a great guy. He was definitely kind of a ladies' man, or just a flirt. And he stole a kiss from Lonnie when he was walking her home one night from some get-together. And because of that, they're forced to get married. Neither one of them want it, which I don't blame them because they didn't like each other. And almost immediately, he forces her to leave with him to go to a new place to settle down. And it was a really hard journey. And yeah, basically they just had a really rough start to their marriage, obviously, because it didn't begin on a good note. The story is very deep. It does address a lot of hard topics, but Joanne just writes stories about hard things very well, if that makes sense, and they're beautiful in a sense. This book did not really end on a redeeming note, not as much as I wanted, but there are more in the series, and I think the story just kind of continues from there because it definitely felt unfinished when I finished this book, which is understandable because there are more in the series which I have not read, and I don't own them yet, so I'm not sure when I'll get to them, but I am really excited to kind of see what she does with their story, and if there, which I'm sure there will be some redeeming qualities in their story. But I do remember loving Lonnie's faith. Like, that's what gave her the strength to keep going, even though it was a very hard situation. Some possible trigger warnings, though, would be Gideon does force himself on her. It's after they're married, but those kinds of things are hard because they're not in love, and they, yeah, you know. We're just going to leave it at that. And just the way he treats her can be very, it's almost emotionally abusive. Yeah, just other hard things like that. Just because their marriage was a rocky one from the beginning, for sure. And then there's also a miscarriage, and so, or a stillborn baby. Yeah, that was really hard. All of those scenes, like everything, it's slowly coming back to me, like the little details about the story. But I think it has a potential to be a really beautiful story, and I love Joanne's writing, and I think I rated it 4 stars. But yeah, I definitely want to keep reading to find out more of Gideon and Lonnie's story. I do love like marriage of convenience tropes or arranged marriages type of thing. Normally if it's done well and it's not like hard. But this one is more of a realistic one of those where it's a shotgun wedding, like they're forced to get married and they don't like each other. And it's just really hard. And it's very real though. Like that's kind of how most of them probably would end up being like. It's a little unrealistic to like immediately fall in love with the person you're married to, especially when they're a jerk like Gideon was in this one. So I hope that makes sense of everything I've said about this book. But there it is. He Stole My Soul by Joanne Bischoff. 4 stars. The next one that I picked up was Agatha Christie's Murder on the Orient Express. I enjoyed this one, as I have most of the other books that I read of Agatha Christie's. I rated 4 stars. The only unfortunate thing is that I saw the movie before I read the book, so I knew the outcome, but it was still very interesting to read it because obviously the book has a few more details than the movie does, and so it was just really fun just watching how she tied everything together with all of the different characters. But yes, I enjoyed this one. And definitely want to keep picking up more of Agatha Christie's books. The next one that I read was... Right, I'm remembering. I was trying to participate in Chantel's Montgomery reading challenge for the month of May. And I think I only read 1 book, which is the next one. That would fit in with that one. Anyway, the next book that I read was Kilmeny of the Orchard by Ellen Montgomery. This one, I honestly enjoyed it. And then I went on Goodreads and read reviews. Do you ever do that? You like really enjoy a book and then you go read some negative reviews on Goodreads and then you see that they actually have some fair points and so you kind of change your opinion on the book? That's kind of what happened with this one. It's very short, sweet, fun, like cliche, flowery, I don't know what the right words are, story. It definitely does not have the depth that most of her other books have. And so, yeah. I still rated it 4 stars because I enjoyed it because like it was really fast, sweet, kind of insta-lovey type of thing. But I don't know, I still just really enjoyed it. And then it wasn't until after I went and saw some negative reviews that I was like, oh yeah, that does kind of make sense. That could be problematic. But I still enjoyed it, and that's my honest opinion. 4 stars. I think it was on Instagram, someone I follow, that I usually, like, I really love to hear her thoughts and stuff on books, and she posted in her stories once that she's very hesitant to, like, just, Mitch, no. Give an author's name, and, like, she's very clear that she doesn't always endorse every book that an author has written or something. And because she's, how was it? Something about them picking up a book and giving them a negative, and because of the book, giving that person a negative view of the author. And she said something about, like, imagine me telling someone about Ellen Montgomery and the first book they pick up is Kilmeny of the Orchard. And she was like, that would be terrible because, yeah. And then I read the negative reviews and I was like, you know what, they have a fair point. Yes, it definitely doesn't have the depth of characters and story that most of her other books do. And so I think all of the negative reviews are fair, but I still enjoyed it. So take that with what you will. A short synopsis is that Eric, the male main character, moves to this little town on Prince Edward Island, or moves to Prince Edward Island to teach school as a substitute, and he randomly is strolling through the countryside and comes across a girl playing a violin, and oh, hear that thunder? And immediately falls in love with her upon first sight. And because of her music, she's playing very beautifully. But then he learns that she can't speak. And then we follow the story from there of how he falls in love and tries to convince her caretakers that he can take care of her and marry her in spite of her not being able to speak. And she grew up in a very sheltered home. But anyway, I really enjoyed it. So, but I would like to know if you did not enjoy it, or like if you just disliked some aspects of the story. Let me know. I want to hear them too. Next one that I completed in May was Inexpressible by Michael Card, and it's a study on the Hebrew word hesed, which is translated to many things. One of the more popular ones, and probably the more well-known ones, is loving kindness, and it's just a study on this aspect of God's character. This was a really like eye-opening book, and I tabbed a lot, I highlighted a lot. There's so much that I could say, but I would highly recommend reading this book. Basically, it's a word that there is almost no English word that can accurately be defined as. He has a page in the beginning of the book with this whole thing is full of words that could work within the definition. And yeah, it was just a very fascinating word study, and just like seeing how the word hesed was used in the Bible and like throughout the Old Testament and the New Testament. And one of the very incomplete definitions that he gives is hesed, when the person from whom I have a right to expect nothing gives me everything. And that's who God is. And as I was trying to say earlier, is how a lot of people view God as this angry tyrant that's just quick to pound us down, judge us. He's always introduced, or whenever he introduces himself, he says that he is a God full of loving kindness and patience, and he's very slow to anger. And I just think that's beautiful. There's so much in this book. I definitely want to return to it a lot, but I do highly recommend it. I still think about it a lot, even after a couple months, and like just seeing, when I see good things, I'm like, oh, that's God, that's his hesed, and like it's just it's a character of, it's just part of God's character. It's just who he is. And anyway, yeah, I don't know if I'm really explaining very well, but I do recommend this book. I think it was very fascinating and insightful. The next one that I picked up was The Heart's Charge by Witemeyer. Number 2 in Hanger's Horseman. I'm just going to read the back because I can't really explain what this book is about without doing so. Members of the legendary Hanger's Horsemen Mark Wallace and Jonah Brooks arrive in Llano County, Texas to deliver a steed, never expecting they'd help deliver a baby as well. Left with an infant to care for, they head to a nearby foundling home where Mark encounters the woman he nearly married a decade ago. After failing at love, Catherine Palmer has dedicated her life to caring for children, teaming up with Eliza Sutherland to start Harmony House. Eliza understands the pain of not fitting society's mold, being illegitimate, and of mixed ancestry. Yet those are the very attributes that lead her to minister to outcast children. The taciturn Jonah intrigues her by defying all her stereotypes of men, but there are secrets behind his eyes, ghosts from wars past and others still being waged. When the horsemen hear rumors of missing children, they start to investigate, sticking close to Harmony House and its beautiful owners. As they work together to uncover the truth, love and danger grow hand in hand until a final sinister scheme threatens to destroy them all. So there we go. I really enjoyed it. I think, yeah, I rated it 4 stars. I always enjoy Karen's books. They can be kind of predictable and sometimes feel like they follow the same plot lines. But I enjoy them. Karen is one of my favorite authors just because it's clean, fun, historical romance, and I always enjoy them. So, number 2 in Hanger's Horseman. We'll probably pick up the 3rd one soon. But then the final book that I read in May was The Robe by Lloyd C. Douglas. I'm gonna get the author's name right this time. Yes, this was a reread. I also have a vlog up that I did. I buddy read this with my friend Erica during May. I buddy read this with Erica at the end of May, and it was a reread for both of us. I thoroughly enjoyed it again. It's one of my all-time favorite books. It basically follows the story of Marcellus, the soldier who won Jesus' robe at the cross when the soldiers were gambling for it. Obviously, it is fiction, but the way I think Douglas just like created a masterpiece just by a simple idea of like the dedication says, the dedication is to a woman who wondered what became of the robe. And he created this beautiful story about how the soldier who won this robe and the journey that he went on to figure out who the man was that wore this robe. And it's a beautiful story. I absolutely loved it. 5 stars all over again. And I feel like more people should read it. It is an older book. It was published in 1942. So it's not like super old English, but it is still a little bit older than what our vocabularies would consist of today. But I still think it's a very easy read. It does take long in the sense that the chapters are very long, so it can feel like a tedious read, but there's just so much packed into this book that I think everybody should at least give it a try. If not, listen to the audiobook. The audiobook is fantastic as well. I've listened to that multiple times, so yeah, you know what? This story, it's one of my favorites. I will always love it. So, there's that one, The Robe by Lloyd C. Douglas. Okay, so, I only read one book in June. When I think back to June, I immediately feel sick the way I felt during that month. It was rough, but we made it through. Only by the grace of Jesus. It was tough. But I did enjoy the book that I read, and it was a Noble Masquerade by Christie Ann Hunter. This is the first one in a... Is it a 4-book series? What is the terminology for that? You know, I know like it's duology and trilogy. What is the 4 one? But anyway, we follow Miranda. She is the oldest sister of the Hawthorne family. And again, I'm just going to read the back. It'll be a lot easier than me trying to explain what the story is and remember everything. Just let the thunder pass by. Okay. Lady Miranda Hawthorne acts every inch the lady, but inside she longs to be bold and carefree. Approaching spinsterhood in the eyes of society, she pours her innermost feelings out, not in a diary, but in letters to her brother's old school friend, the Duke of Marshington. Since she's never actually met the man, she has no intention of ever sending the letters and is mortified when her brother's mysterious new valet, Marlowe, mistakenly mails one of the letters to the unsuspecting Duke. I'm remembering now. This is fantastic. Shockingly, this breach of etiquette results in a reply from the Duke that soon leads to a lively correspondence. Insecurity about her previous lack of suitors soon becomes confusion as Miranda finds herself equally intrigued by Marlowe, a man she has come to depend upon, but whose behavior grows more suspicious by the day. As the secret goings on at her family's estate come to light, one thing is certain. Miranda's heart is far from all that's at risk for the Hawthorns and those they love. Yeah. This was a fun time. I loved it. I did still rate it only 4 stars because I'm starting to be a little bit more, I'm holding my 5-star ratings for those books that are just, you know, precious. So I'm not giving out my 5 stars as freely as I once did. And maybe I should, but I don't know. I really enjoyed this one. I think it probably didn't give it a 5-star just because of the way I was feeling, and it took me almost all month to read this book. And so that's not really fair. But I really did enjoy this story and just watching how everything played out. And just found it so comical the way like she would write these letters and they would accidentally get sent, and then it caused all kinds of chaos for her, and I don't know. I really enjoyed it. And I did start the next book in the series, but I haven't gotten very far with it. But I am excited to see the rest of the series, and just, yeah. I enjoyed this one. It was a lot of fun. Then in July, I read, the first 3 books that I read were on my Kindle, and I think I found it easier to read books on my Kindle rather than picking up physical books while I was sick. I'm not really sure why that is. Maybe it was just because I was laying down all the time and it was just easier to hold a Kindle. But the first one that I picked up was The Isaac Project. I'll put the cover right here, by Sarah Monzon? Not sure. Janet from over at Jane Reads recommended this one, and I had a free trial for Kindle Unlimited, and so I quickly snatched it up as soon as she mentioned it, because it is a marriage of convenience story, loosely based off of the Isaac and Rebecca story, where someone goes and finds a wife for Isaac and they get married, and that's basically what happens here in this story. It's an arranged marriage trope, which I immediately picked it up because I usually love these kinds of books if they're written well. And in the very beginning of the book, Becky finds her boyfriend kissing another woman and completely devastates her, and she's kind of given up on her love life. And after that happens, she's reading the story of Isaac and Rebecca. And she gets this idea to ask a friend to find somebody who would be willing to marry her just like that. And just kind of have that whole Isaac and Rebecca situation all over again. And I thought this would be really interesting, but the story did kind of fall flat for me a little bit. I only rated it 3 stars. Yeah. I don't really know what it was. I wasn't really connecting with the characters, and it felt a little too perfect, I guess. Like, I know that in the Bible, Isaac and Rebecca, like, when he saw her, he loved her immediately. And so I guess Isaac and Rebecca is kind of insta-lovey type of thing. I don't know. But yeah, this one just kind of fell flat for me. It wasn't as good as I thought it would be, which is a little unfortunate. It's been too long to fully flesh out everything that I didn't enjoy about it, because I don't actually remember. So that is unfortunate, but that is The Isaac Project by Sarah Monzon. And then the next one that I picked up on Kindle Unlimited as well was In Her Sights by Karen Witemeyer. And this is book number 1 in the Pink Pistol Sisterhood series. I don't think Karen writes every book in the series. She just wrote this first one. And again, I'm just going to read the description. Stained by his wastrel father's legacy, Jackson Spivey lives on the fringes of society. Townsfolk tolerate him since he keeps the local hotel supplied with fresh game, but mothers coach their daughters to avoid him. After tasting consistent rejection, Jackson spurns all attempts at courtship. The only thing he can count on are his guns and his God. Tessa James has been secretly in love with Jackson for ages, but trying to gain his favor only pushes him further away. When she learns Annie Oakley is traveling through Texas, Tessa seeks lessons from the framed markswoman. If Jackson's life revolves around guns, taking up shooting might help her engage his interest. Too bad she can't hit the broadside of a barn. When Annie loans Tessa a custom pistol, however, things begin to change. The lore behind the mysterious weapon fosters hope that Tessa might finally hit the target of Jackson's heart, but when danger threatens, she might be forced to use the pistol for something other than finding love. So, this was just another fun read by Karen Witemeyer, as always. I rated it 4 stars. That's what I say a lot. It was just a fun read, and just because it's lighthearted, but has some depth to it. I don't know that I'll actually continue the series. Maybe I will. I don't know who the other authors are, and if I would enjoy them as much as I did this one. I don't know. We'll see. But I did love the fact that this is Jackson. If I'm remembering correctly, Jackson was a little boy, or was a young boy in Stealing the Preacher. Yes, the number 2 in the Archer Brothers series. So it was fun revisiting an old character from an old favorite book of Karen Wittemeyer's, but seeing him as an adult. So that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that one. But anyway, moving on. This next one. I have thoughts. A Crown of Chains by Erin Phillips. And I'll put the cover up as well. Yeah, so this is a dark fantasy retelling of the Esther story, and I would say it's a very loose retelling of the Esther story. Holly at A Lovely Day with Holly, I just went back and watched her video and her review of this book, and I agreed with a lot of the things that she said. So my thoughts will also contain spoilers, so if you're wanting to read this, just skip, because I'll just have to talk about the spoilers, because I had a few thoughts about things. Holly had a lot of the same thoughts that I did, and she could probably articulate those better than I will, so you can also go watch her video about this. But one of the bigger issues that I had with the book was that there was a forbidden romance with one of her friends from before, like the time that she had to go to the palace. But she does kind of still have a relationship with this guy after she's married, and they also, like, emotionally, like, there's a relationship emotionally, and then they do end up kissing as well at one point in the story. And yeah, like Holly said, it's kind of hard to know how to truly feel about this. Like, to me, I think it's wrong because she was married, but I understand that it was a forced marriage because of the whole situation. And it was a loveless marriage, and it was only one of convenience. Like, he wanted to use her because of the gifting that she had. Because this is a fantasy book, and Roxana is a fairy, but she was born without wings, and so she has a special gift of being able to read people's thoughts, only if she's looking at them in the eye. And the king finds out about this, and so that's why he chooses her, so that he can use her and that gift to, like, for her to spy on people and to figure out who his traitors are, his enemies, everything like that. But yeah, I really struggled with that. That was one of the big things that I wrestled with. I understand that this is a loose retelling, but Roxana's character really bothered me in a lot of ways because her demeanor, her attitude in certain situations just, like, didn't, to me, exemplify the character of Esther that is portrayed in the Bible. And I know that Esther was human. She was not a perfect individual, so I know that she made mistakes. But I don't know, there's such a strength of character in Esther that I just didn't really see exemplified in Roxana's character. And I don't know, maybe that's a little unfair. But yeah, and it wasn't just Roxana. Like, her uncle, I can't remember his name, but her uncle in the book, who was supposed to obviously be Mordecai, or Mordecai, I think it's Mordecai. Like, Mordecai in the book loved Esther. He was a good man, and he raised her well, and raised her in like the principles, and just like I feel like he did a good job of raising her to be a godly woman, and that is what gave her the strength to go through what she did. But her uncle in the book, like, was a very selfish man and was basically forcing her to do this for his own, like, forced her to go to the palace to, like, for his own gain. And I don't know, I did not like his character at all, which I think was the point. Like, we weren't supposed to like him, but I just didn't like that he didn't exemplify the character of Mordecai either. But again, it's a loose retelling. So take all of my opinions with a grain of salt, because yeah, I might be judging a little bit too harshly. I also don't love dark fantasy, so I know that this book was not written for me, and I didn't really enjoy those aspects of it. Overall, the story just felt really dark, obviously, because it's a dark fantasy retelling, but yeah. This one wasn't for me, but I think if you enjoy dark fantasy, I think you would enjoy this, because it is cleaner in the sense that I would say it's better, it has better content than a lot of the dark fantasy that's out there. But there is a lot of content as far as like the girls that were being chosen obviously having to spend one night with the king, and it kind of goes a little bit into detail, not extremely, like it's not detailed, but you obviously know what's happening when the girls go be with the king, and it's very difficult. It's a very difficult subject to read about and to even think about, honestly, but it's more than likely what actually happened anyway to those girls in the real story. But yeah, for those reasons, I would definitely say younger girls probably shouldn't be reading this book, but yeah, those are just some of my thoughts about this. I rated it 3 stars. The whole time I was reading it, I was like, I'm not enjoying this at all. But I did end up giving it 3 stars because there was a little bit of a redemptive arc at the end, and a little bit more character development for Roxana, and so it did bump it up to 3 stars. It still wasn't as much as I wanted, but yeah, I don't know. If you read this book, I would also like to know your thoughts on it. If you loved it, tell me why. Feel free to try to change my mind, is basically what I'm saying, because I just don't think this book was really written for me. Obviously, like I said, I don't enjoy dark fantasy, and so yeah. I think if I would have just put it out of my mind that this is a retelling of the Esther story, I could have enjoyed it a little bit more and let some things slide, but I read it because it was a retelling, and Esther is one of my favorite stories in the Bible. And yeah, I don't know, it just fell for me, and I think that's okay. But I think other people would really enjoy it, obviously, because I've read the reviews, I read the good reviews, and there are a lot of people who really loved this book. So yeah, that's just my honest opinion and thoughts on this book. We're just gonna leave it at that. Then the next one that I picked up was just a short little junior or mid-grade book, a Boxcar Children book, number 5 in the series, Mike's Mystery. Mostly picking this up because I'm slowly making my way through this series, because I read them as a child and I loved them so much, and they're also just quick reads and they help bump my Goodreads number up a little bit. But I enjoy all of the books that I've been rereading so far in the Boxcar Children series. It's just a lot of fun and takes me back to my childhood. But yeah, then the next book that I read, easily the favorite one of the summer, was The All-American by Susie Finkbeiner. Erica read it, and as soon as she finished it, I was like, you have to give it to me because maybe this will get me out of my slump. It didn't get me out of a slump, but I read it really quickly. I loved it so much. I love Flossie and Bertha both. Flossie just cracked me up. I loved her so much. But yeah, this is set in is it the 50s? Yes. And Bertha loves to play baseball, and so she tries out for some of the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League teams, and every chapter is written from the perspective of Bertha or Flossie, the two sisters. And yeah, I love this book so much. It was 5 stars. The ending, wow. This is definitely my favorite Susie Finkbeiner book. It's only the second one that I've read so far, but I loved it so much. It was so good. And I think because it was so good, it made it hard for me to try to find other books to read after that. So, you know, there's that. But if you haven't picked this one up yet, please do, because it will be well worth your time. Susie's writing is just incredible, and the way she just draws you into her stories and the characters and their lives and everything, it's so good. It's just so good. I love it so much. And then the final book that I read over the summer was Kate DiCamillo. Is that how you say her name? Because of Wynn Dixie. I buddy read this with my little sister. Because she was talking about how she wants to be reading more books, and this was one of the books on her shelf that she hadn't read yet. I also had never read it, and so I was like, let's help each other and buddy read this. And yeah, I enjoyed it. I think, yeah, it was 4 stars. I had watched the movie growing up, and it just felt like revisiting that in my childhood all over again, because the movie pretty much follows this book exactly. So that was a fun thing. But yeah, that is everything that I read over the summer. Definitely wasn't as much as I would have liked, but you know, I'm giving myself grace because there wasn't much I could do about it. But anyway, let me know if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts were on them, or if there are any that piqued your interest and that you would like to pick up and read. Would love to hear your thoughts on all of these. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.